What's good, people? Back again with episode 11, I believe now. We've got an EFL great. The man's been everywhere. The man scored goals everywhere. Mr. Stephen Davies, how are we, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. You?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Homeschooling going well?
Not as well as I'd hope. Obviously, I think everyone's in the same predicament, aren't they? Me and my wife have got two kids, so we've got to try and sort one out, and then you don't want to be giving one too much attention, and there's another one who needs help. So yeah, it's a bit stressful, mate. I wish I was still playing.
Oh, amazing, mate. But yeah, so for everyone that doesn't know, and the reason why I say EFL great because I'm 24, nearly 25, and I look back playing FIFA when I was younger, and I'm like, I need a goal scorer in the championship on career mode. Who am I going to sign? And you were always number one. So cheers for coming on, bud.
Nah, that's no problem, mate.
But where did it all start then? For people that don't know, obviously the accent might give it away.
Yeah, when I was about 7, my dad started his own Sunday league team for obviously my age and people who and friends of mine that was in the same school as me. So it sort of started there, and I was playing for probably 5 or 6 months and was picked up by Liverpool straight away. I progressed at Liverpool right through until I think it was under 15s. And I was just called in one day and they said, listen, we think you're going to be a player. But I think Rafa Benitez had just got involved at Liverpool, and he was bringing a lot of foreign players over around 16, and it was sort of what they're doing is going to push me down the pecking order. So it'd probably be better for me and my potential career if we parted ways. And obviously at the time it was something I was devastated about because it was a team that I loved, and even to this day the team that I support. So yeah, it took me probably 2 or 3 months to digest that and sort of come to terms with football and how cutthroat it was, because obviously as a kid you're very sheltered from it. You play for Liverpool, you get all the nice stuff, and you see kids coming and going, but you never think it's going to be you. And unfortunately it was me. And then I went back to playing Sunday League for probably 2 or 3 months, and then I got a phone call off Tranmere. And so I'd just turned 16 and I got a phone call off Tranmere to invite me up I think there was about 6 months left in their season, and they obviously knew I'd been at Liverpool and they were sort of handing the scholarships out. So they asked me in for a trial game. Literally played half an hour of the trial game, and then straight away they said to me, Dad, we want to give him a 3-year scholarship, which obviously at the time of just leaving Liverpool, it was something I was really keen to do. So I basically snapped the hand off at that, and then sort of played the rest of the season at, obviously, I think it was Centre of Excellences at that time. So I sort of just played the rest of the season there, and it was the first day of pre-season in the scholarship, and obviously I'd never been in and around first team football or a professional environment, and Brian Little called me straight into his office on the first day and basically just said, I've been watching clips of you over the summer. I know you're obviously you're a first year scholar, but you're coming straight with the first team. And I think just after my 17th birthday, which was probably, I think I've been at Tranmere about 11 months, I made my debut they were in League One at that time, and I'd made my debut probably in, I think it was between 10 and 11 months. So it was sort of a baptism of fire. I was grateful that they gave me the opportunity.
Were you that type of player who kind of, like, obviously you probably know yourself, and obviously people listening will know as well, some people thrive off that kind of just throw him in there and see if he sinks or swims? Have you always been a player since obviously being let go from Liverpool at 15, were you like, right, let's go again, I want to get another team? Obviously that bit of emotion because you support the team, but was that something you always thrived off, that kind of, right, next thing?
Yeah, I think once I eventually went into Tranmere, obviously being released and signing for them, it was a really tough time. And when kids at that age, I see it a lot now when I speak to a lot of kids who are being released, thought they're at big clubs, academies, and and have been released, and it's not the end of the world. Listen, there's 24 teams in the Premier League, but there's 96 in the whole football league, and obviously non-league as well. So there's loads of opportunities. I 100% believed in my own ability, and I knew I had enough to become a professional footballer. But without hard work, I know it's as cliche as it sounds, you can be the best player in the world, but if you haven't got the determination and dedication to want to be a player, then you'll struggle. But thankfully for me, it was something that was always inside me, that I knew what I wanted to do, and I'd do everything to do it. And
obviously playing, you were 17 at the time when you started playing for Tranmere, in the first team. What was that like? Obviously, back then, I'm guessing it is physical even now in the EFL, but even back then, I'm guessing, because you're a big guy up top. Have you always kind of enjoyed that kind of battle, I'm guessing?
Yeah, well, originally when I came through at Tranmere, I was a centre forward in the youth team. Mm-hmm. But Brian Little obviously gave me chance in the first team, and at that time we had Gareth Taylor, who was a player who played in the Football League and the Premier League, who scored goals. So I knew I was never going to play against him, ahead of him. We signed Chris Greenacre, who was another player who came from Stoke, who'd scored numerous goals in the Championship. So when I first got called into the first team, I was sort of just happy to be in and around it. So, you know, one day one game I'd come on up front, or I'd be left midfield, right midfield. So I was quite versatile at a young age. So if I was in the team, I was happy. And, you know, sometimes I actually made my debut against Oldham at Prenton Park. We were 4-0. I think we were 3-0 up.
Not bad time to come on.
Yeah, it was brilliant. But we won a penalty. I think there was 10 minutes left, and we won a penalty. And me, being as naive as I was, just went and picked the ball up and thought, right, I'll take this. And Chris Greenacre came over to me and took the ball off me and said, I take pens here. So I was like, all right, okay, mate, no worries. But yeah, it's something. I don't know if you've watched my interviews over the years, but I've always said, like, I'd back myself to score at any level. Like, I know towards the back end of my career, I think injuries, I never really recovered. And, you know, obviously the older you get, the less I was training, the less I was playing, the harder it becomes. And I'd probably say from about 29 to 32, I was really struggling to just, not even to play football, just to wake up in the morning and get out of bed and feel normal, because my body was in absolute bits from a game. So yeah, I think ability-wise, I've always backed myself. It was just getting unfortunate injuries and tough times.
No, 100%. And you went from Tranmere to Derby. What was that like? And it was a bit of, at that time, for a young guy like yourself, and making that step up at a time. Did they just get relegated from the Premiership the year before? What was that like? Obviously, going in there, was Brian, who was manager at the time?
Paul Gill.
What was that like, going in your first day?
To be honest, I done really well at Tranmere, and there was, I think about 6 months into me being in Tranmere's first team, I got a phone call off my agent, who had received a call off Liverpool to try and buy me back. So obviously, me being
you're like, make it happen.
Obviously, I was like, yeah, well, I thought I'd want to make it happen, but I sort of said I wasn't ready. Like, I didn't. Obviously, I was in a first team environment and playing every Saturday and off a Tuesday, and I didn't want to go back to Liverpool and play for the reserve. So I sort of said, without being big-headed, I said no. I just said, listen, it's probably not best. I've only just recovered mentally from being released. I know it was probably, I think, between 12 and 18 months later, I was only just starting to feel like I was a good player again. So I turned that down. I stayed the season at Tranmere, and then the opening day of the season we played Leeds. I think it was their first game in League One. I can't remember the score, but straight after the game, I was driving back in my car, and Gus Poyet phoned me, who was assistant manager at Leeds. The contract was up the end of that season. So he was like, listen, I want you to come here. Dennis Wise was the manager. He was like, we'll do everything to get you. So I think they put 4 or 5 bids in for me, which I think the most they got up to was about 500 or 600 grand. And unfortunately for me, I'd done my cruciate. I think we were playing a home game against Northampton. Nothing really happened, just running with the ball, and felt this pop in my knee. And I was still young, and I thought I'd be able to run it off, but it was obviously a really serious injury.
Even at that age, what do you think when that happens? Obviously, you just played a game against Leeds. You're coming back. You've got a call from the management team. You're thinking, oh, this is looking good here. This could happen. Obviously, huge club, Leeds, and that happens to you. Are you still at the time I'm gonna say so young, but too young, and not kind of played enough games to realise that opportunities don't always come around? Or were you just thinking, I'll be fine, I'll sign when I'm fit again? Or did you kind of realise this might not happen now?
No, well, to be fair to them, straight after the game, and obviously Tommy were brilliant with me, looked after me brilliantly, got me all sorted. I know towards the end of me time at Tommy, it become a little bit toxic between myself and the fans, which there was stories that was said from the owner at Tommy at the time, which were bollocks, basically. What she said was the complete opposite of what really happened.
Yeah.
Basically, I'd done my cruciate. Leeds was still interested, so I had my knee fixed. They agreed to pay that. They paid 500 grand for me to go to. They paid Tommy 500 grand for me to go to Leeds. I actually went to Leeds whilst I was still a Tranmere player for my medical, which Tranmere agreed to, which the fans never knew about. Jeez. Because apparently I just left them in the lurch. And I went to Leeds and had my medical, and I was all agreed to sign there. Dennis Wise lost his job. So then I've come back for Tranmere. I think there was 4 or 5 games left during the season. Ronnie Moore called me into the office and said, listen, we've had an offer off Derby, and we think it's not a fair price, but you've got basically 8 weeks left on your contract. If I was you, I wouldn't sign the deal. And this was Ronnie Moore, and me knowing you the way I do know you, I'll drive you there myself. So at this point, you know, Derby is still playing in the Premier League. Obviously, they had a really tough season, but you know, at that age, it's a hard decision to, especially being out for so long with me cruciate, for me to turn around and turn down the opportunity, which I got because I deserved it. I think was the right decision for me to make. And you know, I think the woman's name who owned the club was Lorraine Rogers, and she come out afterwards and basically spoke a load of shit and lied about everything what was happening. I did turn down a contract towards the end because I had the chance to go and play for a team that had just come down from the Premier League, and obviously in an ideal world they would have got the money from Leeds earlier on in the season, but it didn't work out like that, and they still got a great sum of money from Derby and via tribunal. She had a little pop at me that I didn't turn up for the tribunal. I sent someone on my behalf. Yeah. But I had a fucking game in the evening. I'm sure Paul Gill would have been happy that I'm not in the squad because I'm arguing over a move that has already happened.
Nothing to do with you either.
Yeah, and I'd already been at Derby for 2 or 3 months. Like, it didn't need to end that way. And you know, when she come out and basically was slagging me off, listen, even to this day, I look for Sammy's results. It's a club that I really care about. I know the fans do not like me because they believe in what she said, but I'm sure if you ever got it on here and put it to her, you'd see a change in her face, because 1,000,000% she made up a load of shit, and her own manager told me to go, and it's exactly what I've done.
Do you think a lot of fans don't, obviously because they don't see that side of things, they automatically just look for the player and think, oh, big clubs come in for you, oh, we're off, oh, Tranmere, who are these? When really, like you said, and you look at it from any way, if you say to someone, go do your job somewhere else, at no disrespect, a bigger club, a higher level, test yourself, you're a young player, of course you're going to go. It's a non-brainer.
Yeah, and that's I think that's what hurt me, because it's probably 15 years ago that it happened, and I've never told, and no one other than family and my agent know the real story. And it was something that I never wanted to say at the time, because without being disrespectful to the club and the fans, I was playing on a better level and I had bigger problems to worry about. You know, we're coming up against some huge teams, and I'm worrying about the chairman at Tranmere complaining that she just received £250,000. Well, I think in the end it was like 1.25 million. Like, you literally had me for 12 months. 18 months, sorry. You had me for 18 months and made 1.2 million on me. Like, what more do you want me to do?
I don't think there's many players from Tranmere that can say that they've made the club that much. Do you know what I mean? So...
Listen. There's been loads of players that have come through there. Like Aaron Creswell was a year younger than me. He was in the same team, but I think she tried to. I think because they were tightening the purse strings and they sort of knew that the teams that, obviously there was Nottingham Forest, big teams in League One at the time, they couldn't compete with them, and me just leaving because my contract ended up, I think it'd look bad business if she couldn't convince me to sign a deal, which I understand, and if she'd have just said that, I'd have accepted it. But the fact she went in, she tried to go in and say, like, I wouldn't be a footballer if it wasn't for them. Like, I was there for 18 months. I'd worked from 7 to 15 to become a professional footballer. Yeah, 100% I respect them, and I'm so grateful that they're giving me the opportunity. But it wasn't all down to you. Like, yeah, obviously the coaching was amazing. The players were amazing. I loved it. I loved every single second of it. But as a professional footballer, it's short, and I had an opportunity to go, and the manager told me to take it, and I took it.
100%, mate. Obviously, going in, we're saying about Derby, they've just come down. Obviously, it was a bad season in the Prem. But are you still thinking going in there, like, you believe in your ability, you back yourself to score at any level? Are you thinking, go in here, work hard, I can make a name for myself here? And what was that environment like, obviously, just coming down from the Premiership with the players?
It was, to be honest, it was sort of double-edged sword, because I'd played probably the last 3 or 4 games of the season before because of my cruciate, so I knew I wasn't 100% flying, but I had my medical and done all the fitness tests, and they ensured me that everything was fine. So that sort of ticked the box for me where I knew I was ready. So I literally went in on the first day, acted like a young player, like I was still as a scholar. Obviously, there was big characters in there, Robbie Savage, players like that who were huge personalities. So I sort of just kept myself to myself up, and then the games came round. Obviously, you do the first 2 or 3 weeks running, and the games come round, and obviously early on in the season, in pre-season, you play 45 minutes. Everyone plays 45 minutes. So I started the first pre-season game away at Burton Albion, and somehow managed to beat the whole team and score with my right foot, which I didn't think, out of all the chances I've had in my career, I always knew I'd score goals, but that was one of them goals where I sort of shocked myself, because up until that point, I still wasn't sure if my knee was okay. I'd trained and played games for Tranmere, but this was a huge step up. It was bigger players, stronger players, faster players, and obviously, I think Burton were in League 2 at the time. I wasn't interested in what league they were in. I sort of was more interested if the players within my own team trusted me to give me the ball, which they did. And then from there, mate, I sort of just took it in my stride.
We will talk about, obviously, happier times, but I would have to talk about, obviously, your time at Derby and one of the serious injuries you could even get. You talk about it yourself, mate, and let people know how it happened and how is it today.
Listen, it was something that I'd never ever wish on anyone. We were playing against Southampton, and I remember Gareth Roberts, who was our left back, running down the line and looking to cross it in, and the way I played, I was always on the defender's last shoulder and trying to make a run. And I remember him going to cross the ball and trying to nip in front of, I think it was Jose Font, and try and nip in front of him. And he sort of seen me coming and just put his elbow out to stop me. Well, put his arm out. Obviously, he elbowed me and fractured my skull, and it was At the time, I didn't think it was that bad. I was obviously on the floor and I had my hands over my head like this, and I could feel something, but I felt like the rest of my forehead was a lump, and the inside of it was just normal. So just this spot here was normal, and this was all swollen.
Yeah.
So the physio obviously came on. I had my hands over my head, and he said, "Move your hands." But as he told me to move my hands, I sort of lifted up as well because I felt okay. I was still conscious, so I felt okay. And as soon as I lifted up, I just seen this horror on his face, and he was like, "Just lie down, don't move, just stay still." So
and how old are you at this point?
I think I was 23. So it was a couple of years later, but at that point it was like, oh no, what's happened? So they obviously rush you through the stadium and into the ambulance, and it wasn't until I was in the ambulance where I knew I was in trouble, because I had this urge, like my eyes were going to pop out my head, like just this horrible feeling of like a built up pressure, and I felt like I was keeping my eyeballs in my own head by keeping hold of them. So obviously the ambulance people are asking me how I feel, and I'm telling them, and then from that, mate, it's a complete blur for probably about 4 or 5 days afterwards. I can't remember anything about it. Literally, not a thing.
And then when you came around, what did they say? And what was that like? Because I think people forget. Obviously, we're all people at the end of the day, but people look at footballers, I think, sometimes as different creatures, and you feel no pain, see no evil, all that stuff.
Yeah,
what's that like?
Obviously, my first initial thought when I woke up and sort of realised where I was my wife was in London with our 2 kids, so she obviously hasn't seen me. Well, in my eyes, she hadn't seen me, but she'd received a phone call off my mum and dad who were at the game, who told her to get back as soon as possible. So yeah, as I woke up, I've seen Sasha sitting next to me, and she's obviously told me that everything went well. I think in the end I ended up with 10 metal plates, which is across my forehead here, and I've got 21 or 22 screws to hold it in. And listen, it was a tough. I think I was out for 6 months, but it was tough, because obviously they do the surgery and then you go back to see the surgeon, and I was advised to just call it a day. I was only, I think it was 2 millimeters away from brain damage. Like if my skull had pierced inwards towards my brain 2 more millimeters, then I'd have been brain damaged. So when people are saying stuff like that to you, and I only had a young family, and obviously football was everything to me, and when he advised me not to play, it hit me straight away, and I was like, fuck you, I'm coming back. And straight away I knew I'd play again. Not, obviously he could only advise me, as I'm sure that's what he's paid to do, is in his mind, listen, it's a bad one, don't try and come back. But I knew from when I walked out that I'd come back. And listen, Nigel Clough was the manager at the time, and he was so good to me. He was brilliant to me and my family, and I owe him an awful lot throughout my career. But my first game back, I think we played Birmingham at St Andrews, and basically the surgeon, I went in to see the surgeon on the next occasion and said, listen, there's no chance of me not playing. I'm definitely coming back. And he advised me to wear a mask for the rest of my career. I wore it a couple of times in reserve games, but it made it worse. Every time I headed the ball, it like put more pressure onto where the scar was and where the break had been. So I think on the Friday morning, Nigel called me in, and we were playing Birmingham away, and he said, listen, you're playing. And I was delighted. So straight away I said, what about the mask? He was like, no, you're wearing the mask. So I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, here we go. So I started with the mask, and the way I played, I was a big lad, so the team liked to play the ball forward to me to get hold of the ball. I was good in the air. So we had a corner, and I had the mask on, and I just took it off. I was facing away from him, and I just took it off, and we ended up playing a short corner. I think Jamie Ward played the short corner to Ben Davies, and Ben Davies crossed it in, and my instinct was, it's there, go and head it. So I've headed it, it's gone in. Obviously I'm delighted I've scored, so I've started running over to Nigel, realising that I've got the fucking mask in my hand, and as I've got to him, I've tried to put it on quickly, and I've celebrated with the lads and nothing was said, but literally 5 minutes later, look over, he's making a sub, number 7. I'm like, oh, bollocks, I'm coming off. Straight away, he says, I told you, every time you take the mask off, you're not playing. So he brought me off. He brought me off in the game, and then I think I went in on the Monday morning, and I went into his office, said, listen, obviously, I can understand that you're only looking out for me, but it's a hindrance more than it's a help.
Yeah.
Like, can we do something? He said, listen, go back to the surgeon, speak to him again. I think we were playing Blackpool on the Tuesday night. So he managed to get me an appointment Tuesday morning. I went to see the surgeon. I said to him, listen, there's no way I can play with this on. He said, obviously, as your surgeon, my advice is to keep it on. I want you to keep it on, but if you decide you don't want to wear it, don't wear it. So I'm like, right, okay, come out of the meeting, phone Nigel. I'm like, Gaffer, he said I don't have to wear it. He's like, but did he? I was like, yeah. He said, listen, I don't have to wear it. Obviously, I did have to wear it, but he made it up to me. So we played Blackpool on a Tuesday night. I ended up scoring 2. We won 2-1. And then it was like, told you I didn't have to wear it. And from that day on, it sort of just...
Never spoke about it again.
Yeah, never spoke about it again, thankfully.
Jesus. So that was obviously such a time when you're in your head beforehand, you're thinking, I want to get going here, like I'm doing well. That happens, come back, go again. Do you think that's something that some players, when people see them nowadays at such a young age come onto the scene, something happens, whether that's an injury, dip in form, do you think because the way you work, like, no, I'm coming back, I'm going again, do you think that players that don't have that, that's why they do just trickle down maybe the system or fall out?
To be honest, I think a lot of it is pressure. You know, you see some players who are flying, and one thing I never done as a player was have social media. It was never there at the start of my career, and towards the end of my career when it was there, why did I need it?
Yeah.
I wouldn't openly walk out of the ground on a Saturday night after playing poorly and say to all the fans, here's my telephone number. If you think I played shit, ring me up or text me and abuse me. So why on earth would they have social media? It's something that I didn't grow up with, and I didn't need it to have a career. So, but I think especially for kids nowadays, there's so much pressure on them because, listen, you could be a 17-year-old kid who's flying at Liverpool, but then there's a 17-year-old kid who's flying at Man United who's on 10 grand a week more than you, scoring goals. He's got a nice car, and automatically you see this, and it becomes more pressure.
Yeah. Like,
don't worry about what anyone else is doing. Just focus on what you're doing and keep... Listen, I don't think, you know, we all sit in a pub and watch a match now, and you watch your team, you're like, he's shit, him, get him off his... Mate, I've never met a professional footballer who's shit. They've obviously done footballers for a reason. There's something that people can see in them. Obviously, I know we all have opinions, and we all love to think that we know the game inside out, but we don't, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, and the pressure that we put these kids under is ridiculous. Like, is it better being at Liverpool's under 23s and on £5 grand a week, or playing for Exeter in League Two on £1,200 a week? Well, I think playing for Exeter on £1,200 a week is much better than playing for Liverpool under 23s because you haven't done anything. You see kids leaving Liverpool's and Everton's and Man City's now. They're like 22. You've never seen them. You're like, where's he been? Where when I was playing, if you were 16, 17, you was good enough. Right, you're in. I don't think we see enough of that now. We're always waiting for that perfect talent where, listen, someone might develop at 25, 26, but why have him in an academy till he's 23, doing nothing? Why not just let him go and play? He's not needed.
100%, mate. Like, I think we could probably name loads of players, Christ. But you, especially nowadays, like you said, with the social media and everything, and all the pressures, like obviously Reece Williams at Liverpool, last season playing for Kidderminster, playing in the Champions League now for Liverpool. Players aren't willing to do that.
No, and to be fair to Rhys Williams, mate, it's a massive jump. Like, it's a jump that you can't even envision. So, listen, he had a couple of poor games, and you know he's got Marcus Rashford running on him. What do you want him to do? Like last year, he probably had the postman running on him. Like, give him a break. Yeah, he was poor. He was poor. So what? Don't just. Yeah, but like he's still at Liverpool now, and why not just send him out to the League Two team? He's played against United. He's struggled. Get him out. Say to him, right, there's no fans in stadiums. Go and play for an Oldham, Carlisle, someone like that. Go and get 20 games under your belt. Come back next summer. Let's see if anything's changed. Do it. No. Send them out. Give them 100%. Some experience.
Couldn't agree more, mate. 2011 to 2013, that 2-year window, your best scoring record between Derby and Bristol City.
Yeah.
How did that move come around to Bristol? And why Bristol at the time?
It was a tough one because over my time at Derby, I picked up a lot of injuries, and I think it was all down to when I come back from my first cruciate at Tranmere. I think I came back a little bit too soon, and that wasn't nothing to do with the club. That was my own. I needed to do it before I went to Derby. I needed to play games to know I was okay. I said to you before, I was still unsure whether it was right. Obviously, at such a big injury, you don't actually know if you're completely okay until you put yourself in the situation. And I didn't want to go to Derby not knowing if I was fine. So I think I rushed that injury, and I've paid for it for probably the rest of my career, because I was picking up injuries left, right, and centre at Derby. Every time I got close to a big move, something else happened. I think before I fractured my skull, I was leading goal scorer in the Championship. I think Ricky Lambert was 5 or 6 goals behind me. We were top of the league. Everything was going right. I fractured my skull, and it's like, oh my God, I've got to start again. And listen, the opportunity came for me to go to Bristol City, and I just felt like I needed a change. It was nothing to do. The club actually offered me a new 3-year contract, but I needed a change. There was stuff going on personally at home that I thought it was for the right decision for us all to just move and try and start again.
Why do you reckon you did have your best success at Bristol in terms of goals wise? Why do you reckon that was? Was it the manager? What were the players like there at that time? The squad?
No, I wouldn't say it was the manager. I think when I come back from my head injury at Derby, I think I'd scored 4 or 5 goals in the last 5-6 games, but I felt fitter. I felt stronger. When I'd done my face, I went to Leicester Tigers and started doing a lot of work with them, as well as work with Derby's fitness staff. And you know, I was a different build to most footballers. Like simple stuff like Nigel Clough, I was banned from using the gym because as soon as I could lift the bench press 20 times, mate, and walk out like the Hulk. It was ridiculous. So stuff like that, I was banned from the gym. So my body was completely different to other players. So I think when I went to Leicester, obviously rugby players are a lot bigger and a lot stronger. So I went to Leicester Tigers, and we sort of come up with a plan of managing me on how to train, when to train, how to keep me explosive and stuff like that. And I probably, for 18 months or so during that time, was probably when I felt my best. And no coincidence, I played more games and I scored more goals, but it was something that I could never sustain. Like, I just couldn't keep the way I was training and the things I was doing, the amount of games that come around. It was unsustainable. Obviously, the games got much quicker now.
Yeah.
And it was becoming much quicker when I was playing, but mate, I've had like 16 operations in my career. Like, something, if I fix one thing, something else went wrong. And it become this vicious circle where for 18 months I was sort of free of it. And then it just started cropping back up again. And listen, it's been the story of my career. Every time I've got myself on the verge of that big move or that next step, something happened. But I've said it on numerous occasions to people I've spoke to, I wouldn't change it because, listen, I was a young kid with a dream, and I think I played over 400, 500 professional football games. Like, if you'd have offered me that at the start of my career, I'd have snapped your hand off. So I'm not going to sit here and complain. Obviously, there's things I could have done.
Yeah.
Within the times when I'm injured, it's a tough time. You work as a footballer, you work all week for that release at the weekend, and when you're getting injuries that are 6-9 months at a time, it becomes lonely, and it's a dark place because you're in training. But the boys go out to train, you're stuck in. They then go to away games, you're stuck in, and you have group chats, and everyone's talking about the game, and you're sat on the sofa at home. And I think at times I struggled, and obviously by that time I had my own family. So on a Sunday, I'd be like, sod this, come on, let's go and have a Sunday dinner and a couple of drinks with my wife, because it was hard for everyone. It wasn't just hard for me. I was moody, miserable, and coming home and I'm taking it out on my family, which I know every player does. It's something that you don't mean to do, but
just is.
It's a horrible circle, because you walk into a game on a Saturday, especially Pride Park, places like that, and there's 30,000 people. And as soon as you open that door, the first question is, when are you back? When are you back? When are you back? And you listen to that every day, your life for 9 months, mate. You're just like, I'm just back when I'm back, mate. I'm doing everything I can. Like, and I listen to the supporters, and that's what I love about football. Like, I loved engaging with the fans, but a simple question of when are you back, I've already heard it 40 times before I've even got to the door. And then you become snappy. It's a natural instinct to be like, you feel like just sitting around saying, well, if you'd have fucking listened, I've just told you, mate, there, I'll be back in 3 months, 4 months. But listen, they pay good money, and I think all football fans are brilliant. Like, I'm a massive fan myself, and you do ask questions, and it's not their fault. It's because you feel it inside. You're the one who's been in pain. You're the one who's learning to run again, learning to do things again. Like, when I fractured my skull, looking at my kids thinking, why the fuck am I sitting here? And why can't my kids come over to me? Like, stuff like that people don't see and don't recognise, and it becomes a lonely and dark place at times.
What type of player were you at the training ground? If we asked all your managers, what were you like at the training ground and players that you played with?
I know exactly what they'd say. They'd say that once you put me into a game, I could do everything I wanted. I think Paul Jewell was the first manager who actually pulled me and said, "You're a lazy bastard because your ability allows you to be lazy."
Yeah. And
listen, I was 20, 21 at the time, and you think you know everything, and I didn't. I wouldn't be lazy as in fucking it off. I just, we'd be doing drills and it'd be run the ball 20 yards and then clip a ball in another 30. Well, I'm thinking, well, I can just play that 50 yards anyway and then just jog over.
Yeah.
Just simple things like that, where some players, obviously everyone can do it, but I think I was just naturally could do it. I sort of looked lazy, even though I weren't being lazy. I think we played a game it was Doncaster away, and I think we got beat 2-1, and Nigel Clough, after the game, just fucking ruined me. It was like, you lazy bastard, you've done nothing. You've walked around all day. And then I went in on the Monday, and obviously you had the GPS unit, and it put it up, and there's my name at the top of the list that covered just under 13 kilometres. So me being me, take it straight off the wall.
Right, yeah.
Knock on his door, walk in, say, I thought I was lazy. But I think it was just my style, just the way. I don't know, I felt like football was just effortlessly easy for me. And I don't mean the physical part of it was something that when it got quicker, I really struggled with, because the injuries got too much, and I was always battling before I was fit to try and prove I was fit.
Yeah.
But I always knew if I proved to the manager that I was fit in training, then I'd breeze the game, because the games was the easy bit for me anyway.
Putting the ball in the back of the net was the thing that
just natural stuff, like knowing where to be and runs to make and showing for the ball and weight of pass, like stuff like that I could just do effortlessly. Where if you said to me, right, you're running a channel 10 times to chase a ball, you're not going to get. I'd be like, oh, for fuck's sake, what am I doing this for? If he's faster than me, I'm never going to win it, so why do I keep running it? Like, I'm going to fake to run it and then come short and get it. Stuff like that, where I wouldn't fall out with managers, but when you get a game plan of, listen, the two centre-backs are slow, turn it in behind, and I'm like, well, I'm hardly Usain Bolt.
I'm just as slow.
Yeah, but why am I going to keep doing it? I know it provides options for the players, but then in the end, I'm like, well, I'm going to go and then show short, and then the ball gets played there anyway, and I'm standing there thinking, well, I'm in 10 yards of space. Give me the ball. And then obviously you get in at half time, and the mind's like, I fucking told you, keep running in behind. And you're like, yeah, but he's going to get there before me. Why not just give me it? So, listen, I never ever fell out with a manager or would have a bad word to say about them. But I think most of them would say that because I had
the
good ability, that I become lazy or I looked lazy when I wasn't. Like, I don't think there was ever a game where I've come in after a game and the manager's pulled me and been like, you're 3-4 kilometres below everyone else. Like, I'd do exactly the same or more or be there or thereabouts. I think on the eye, I just looked like I was lazy because I found everything so easy.
No, 100%. I think you see that now because obviously everyone likes to press, and the lower you go down the leagues now, everyone likes to try and press, and you just want to be effective. But what was it like then at Blackpool? Because everyone knew Blackpool at that time. It was, well, let's just say it looked from the outside world in a bit of a shit show at some points.
Yeah, it was. To be honest,
how the club was. What was it like?
When I originally went to Blackpool, I'd spoke to Bristol City, and they were going to, for some reason, they were going to Botswana for 6 weeks on a pre-season tour, and I was like, when my daughter was born, she was really poorly, and so she was in hospital for like 6 or 9 months when she was first born, like in and out, and she was allergic to literally everything. So by the time I was in Bristol, she was probably still only 2.5, 3, and I'm thinking, I'm going to Botswana for 6 months, for 6 weeks. Sorry. During the off season, I've got to go and have, I think, 6, 7, 8 immunisations. I'm thinking, bollocks. There's no way I'm going there. Why would we need all these immunisations if it's safe? That's just my own mindset of, my daughter's been poorly. There's no way I'm leaving my wife here in Bristol for 6 months. Listen, the baby could pick up a glass of milk and drink it, and she'd be violently sick. Like, she was literally allergic to everything. So I needed to be at home. And I turned up on the first day of pre-season, and all the lads were walking in with the suitcases, and I think it was Steve Lansdowne, who was the owner, like, looks at me, and I'm just walking in with my wash bag, and he's like, where's your case? I said, listen, I couldn't make the immunisations. I was back in Liverpool. And he was like, you what? I was like, yeah, well, I have had conversations with the manager over the summer and said, I don't want to go. It's too far, and if I'm needed at home, I need to be here. I wasn't refusing to do anything. I said, listen, I'll train with the youth team. I'll do everything you ask me to do. I just want to stay in Bristol, because 6 weeks and, 10,000 miles is probably a little bit too far for me to be able
how
to
many jabs?
Seven jabs later and 20,000 miles worth of travel. If I'm needed at home, I'm needed. And they sort of didn't want to play ball with me. So I just went into Sean O'Driscoll and said, listen, whilst I'm here, I'll give you everything I've got. But I think we'd just been relegated as well. And they just bought me for £1 million from Derby. So I was on good money, and they wanted to get rid of me, but they didn't. But as soon as they got relegated, I think mine was the first name to be like, we need to get him off the wage bill, because Sam Baldock signed on the same day as me for Bristol, and Sam had a proven record in League One, as stupid as it sounds. I hadn't played in League One for 5, 6 seasons, and Sam was proven to score goals. So they decided to keep Sam, and I got an opportunity to go to Blackpool, so I went there. And at the start, under Paul Ince, it was brilliant.
What was he like as a manager?
He was good, mate. He was obviously he's a legend, isn't he? So
yeah,
you know, I was lucky enough to work for Nigel, who played for Liverpool and England. And obviously, you look at Paul Ince, who's played for Man U, Liverpool, Lazio, England, or Inter Milan, England. So you'd be stupid and naive not to take something from them. So, but I think as a manager, he was brilliant. Obviously, fans and other people have different opinions, but from what I seen of him and what he asked me to do, I thought he was spot on. But as in Blackpool, as always, they had a couple of clowns as owners, and it was just a shit. It was, mate, what you said before, it was an absolute shit show.
And was that just even? How was that? Do you reckon? Or like, I don't know. Let's say, for example, you go in. Was training affected? Like, would you go in and like something would have happened and then it would affect the whole club? Because obviously we've all heard stories of the owner and stuff coming in and training.
Yeah, no, I think it was just training. Like, the manager would be saying one thing and then you'd hear him. I think at the time, he lived in and around where the club was. So the club has its own hotel and he owns the hotel. So I think his dad lived in the hotel, in the penthouse upstairs. So you'd be like going in for lunch after training and his dad sitting there like telling me how to play up front, and I'm thinking, fuck off, mate. What the fuck you're sitting there with the fucking cowboy hat on telling me how to play football. Like, shut up.
Yeah.
And I think for everyone it become really draining. So I had the full season. I had the season with Paul. Then he left with about 3 months to go. Then Barry Ferguson come in, who was a player and probably the best player I've ever played with. He was absolutely mustard, and he was coming towards the end of his career. But to this day, if anyone asks me who is the most gifted and best player you played with, it's Baz 100%, because he was just effortless in everything he'd done. And he then becomes manager. So I've got another international player who's now my manager. And I really started to pick up and start doing well again. I think Barry was offered the job and he decided not to take it. Then Jose Riga came in, foreign manager, who I think he'd just been at Charlton. Yeah. I think he just kept Charlton up. So he got the job. So sort of like a new start for everyone, and you turn up for pre-season and there's fucking 6 players. You're like, mate, we're in the championship. We've got 6 players. Like, what's going on? From that, it's like we're getting loads of players on trial. Like,
how is that as you, though, as one of the 6, where you're looking at it and thinking? Because I, as a fan, not as a coach, I always look at it and I look at a team and I'm thinking, if I was one of those players, like you said, like one of 6, I'd be onto the agent and say, "Get me out as quick as I can."
Yeah.
Is it as easy as that, or is it not as easy?
No, it's not. It's not as easy as that. But it's really demoralising. Like, you know, we've all got friends at other clubs, and you're ringing them, and they've got a game. Like we had 2 games in pre-season. 2 games. We had 6 players and about 25 stylists. You're like, how is this sustainable? We played our first game, I think it was at Forest away, first game of the season. So he's managed to recruit a load of players that probably no one had really heard of. Yeah. They were all from abroad. I think he signed Orlandi players like that who'd done well in England. So, you know, we've got the makings of Ishmael Miller signed. So we've got the makings of an okay team. We turn up for Nottingham Forest. We're in a room Saturday morning in a hotel. Jose Riga gets up, names the team. The next minute, the door opens at the back. The club secretary walks in, goes up to Jose, whispers a couple of things, walks out. Jose tells the fella who's the analyst guy to take the team down. Puts another team up 10 minutes later, completely different. We're like, we've got 3 subs. We're like, what the fuck's going on? And manager Jose's like, oh, the secretary, I won't name him because it's not fair on him.
Yeah.
The secretary forgot to register the players in time. We're like, mate, we're a championship team. We're playing at the City Ground in front of 25,000 people in 2 hours. And he forgot to fucking register the players. You're like, what is this? What's the fucking point? So, me, the way I was in. I'd say it. Just like I'm saying it to you. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? how can you expect us to go and compete with these teams? Listen, these weren't. This was Mikel Antonio, Henry Lansbury, top players who all had top careers, and we're expected to go there with 12. I think, mate, honestly, I think we had 2 subs and we had 10 sitting in the stand, all behind the goal, and God knows the fans must have been saying, "We've just bought you for X amount, why aren't you playing?" "Oh, the security forgot to register me." It was like complete shit show. So I had a bit of a run-in with Jose Riga, because, not that it was his fault, but who can you, as a player, who can you go and speak to? Like, I'm not going to go and moan to the chairman because he pays me wages. And within my contract, I'm paid to play. So I was well up for playing. I'm like, but we can't play on our own. We need help. And it was something that never happened. And unfortunately, Jose lost his job. And by that time, Nigel had got the Sheffield United job. So he was desperate to get me to go to Sheffield United, and for one reason or another, we just couldn't get it done. So I think it was about 2 or 3 games in, I said to Jose Riga, "Listen, I'm off." He was like, "No, you're not." I'm like, "Yeah, I am." So for 6 weeks, it's like, "Yeah, you are." "No, you're not." "Yeah, you are." "No, you're not." So it become toxic. And anyway, Jose Riga gets the sack, and Lee Clark comes in. By this time, I'd already made my mind up that I wanted to go to Sheffield United, because I don't know if you've seen it, but we play games at home, mate, and 10 minutes in, the fans would just like start throwing tennis balls on the pitch.
Yes,
mate, there was about 50,000 tennis balls on the pitch. It was like, what the hell's going on here? The pitch was shit. The pitch was absolutely it was rubbish. Because I think in the previous summer, he had a concert on in the ground like 2 days before the season started. So it never ever recovered. But it was all about making money. So I sort of made my mind up that I was going.
Yeah.
Lee Clark come in.
What's he like?
He was brilliant.
Is it what you see, kind of what it says on the
he's so passionate. Like, and to be fair to him, he gave everything. But for the time I was there, literally, he was there morning, noon and night, trying his best. And when he first come in, mate, he must have literally put his arse on his seat, and I was in. I was like, "Gaffer, can I go?" And he's like, "Well," he's like, "I've only just fucking walked in." I'm like, "Oh no, but I've spoke to the chairman. He said that he's not bothered if I go, so can I go?" And he was like, "Davo, please, like, you know, I'm walking into a job. If I let me strike a goal on my first day, I'm going to look like a fucking idiot."
Yeah. He
said, "Just give me a couple of weeks." So I was like, "Right, okay, I'll give you a couple of weeks." So I played for probably 4 or 5 weeks, and I was fine with Lee, but I think we had a players' appearance, and there was a young lad who was supposed to be on the appearance with me. The reserves were playing a game at the training ground, so I was stood with the manager watching the reserves, completely forgot all about this appearance.
Yeah. Like,
genuinely just forgot. I didn't not turn up, I just forgot. So by the time I've realised I'm stood with Lee Clark, I said, "Oh, fucking hell, Gaffer." I said, "I had an appearance and I've missed it." And he was like, "Don't worry about it, mate." He said, "You're here watching the lads, fuck it." So I'm like, "Right, okay." Get home, look at my phone, I've got like 5 missed calls off Carl Oyston. I'm like, "What's this fucking tit want?" So I phone him, I'm like, "What? Why are you ringing me? Can I go?" And he's like, "Well, you know you can't go because the manager doesn't want you to go." I said, "Well, what are you ringing me for then?" He was like, "Your appearance." I was like, "Listen, my fault. I completely forgot. I was watching the reserves." He was like, "Nah, fuck off. I'm doing your 2 weeks' wages," and hung up on me. So I was like, "What?" Literally just hung up on me. So I phoned the young lad who was supposed to be doing the appearance with, a lad called Charles Dunn, who signed from Wickham. He was only a young lad at the time. So I phoned him and was like, "Have you heard from the chairman?" He was like, "Yeah, fuck's sake." He said, "He's doing me 50% of a week's wage." And I'm like, "Mate, he's doing me too." So I'm straight on to the PFA. I said, "This fucking clown is, for the same offence, doing 150% of a week's wage and me 2 weeks. Like, surely there's no consistency, is it? Because I was at that time the highest paid player there. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? So it went on for weeks, and in the end I ended up going back into Lee Clark, and I'm being honest with him. I said, "Listen, I'm not enjoying it." I need to go. And he was like, do you know what? He said, you've given me everything, like you said you would. He said, sort yourself out and go to Sheffield United. And I shook his hand and I said to him, I promise you within 6 months you'll phone me and say it's too much. So I went to Sheffield United, mate, and at the end of the season, my phone goes, Lee Clark. He goes, mate, I fucked it off. It was too much for me. Said, and we just laughed. I went and fucking told you. And I think he got the Kilmarnock job and tried to sign me to go up there. But at that time, it was nothing I was really interested in. But same as like Tranmere, obviously I left on bad terms, and since then I've been back. Funny enough, before I went to Hamilton, I went back there for 6 months just to help out, never to play. And I'm nothing really other than I knew the manager and he asked me to come in and help him out and go on the bench if needed. And the fans and stuff like that, I always had a good relationship. I think I've had a good relationship with most fans.
Yeah.
But I left on a sour note where obviously they think it was all about money, but when someone's on you 24/7 for something that you haven't really done, or just because he offered you this contract when they were flying and now because they're not flying, he's trying to get his money back. I used to just go in and say, listen, you offered me the contract. In any other workplace,
no chance.
That's my contract.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. If your contract is that in any other workplace, does a manager call him in and say, oh, listen, that's a little bit too much. Do you mind taking a pay cut? And I was like, fuck off. Like, you offered me. So it's mine. Like, if you want me to leave, let me go. I've said I'll go. So it was just a bit of banging heads, mate. And I ended up, thankfully, forcing my way out and getting to Sheffield United to link up with Nigel again.
And obviously you were at Sheffield United then for the remainder of the season, and then Rochdale straight after that.
Yeah. No, after that I went to Bradford.
So your time at obviously Bradford and Rochdale now, you're back in League One. Out of both of them, obviously they're quite big clubs, obviously in the north. What was it like playing for such? And you look at all your career, you've always played for real football fans, if you know what I mean by that, like proper football fans, passionate fans. What's it like, kind of going down into League One? Was that quite hard for you, like mentally, or just like at the game, I'm gonna go and play?
No, I think towards, obviously I was really lucky when obviously I got the Derby move and then Bristol City and Blackpool, and then even the Sheffield United one, I'd agreed to sign there again on the basis that Nigel stayed, and I think we got beaten the playoff semi-final, that crazy game with Swindon, which was like 5-5. It was absolutely mental. So we got beaten that. Nigel called us in a couple of days later, and I thought he was calling us in to sign a deal, and he said, listen, it's looking a bit shaky here for me. They expected me to get them up. He said, I can't give you the deal because they're not letting me do anything. And then within 2 days, mate, he'd been sacked, which was, I think, was shit. So I sort of just came back from, I drove back from after the game, and we went straight on holiday, me, Sash and the kids. And whilst I was away, an ex-teammate phoned me, Paul Dickoff, who was, I think he was Doncaster manager. So he phoned me. We basically had a chat, agreed a deal. So I said, right, 100% I'll come. I've obviously played with you before. So I'd agreed to go to Doncaster, and then whilst I was still away, I think one of my friends phoned me and said that Doncaster had signed Andy Williams, who was a striker, who was at, I think he was at Swindon when we were playing against them at Sheffield United. So I phoned Dickie and he was like, Dave, oh, please don't. I was like, what? He's like, the chairman signed him. Like, I don't know what you want. I can't say anything to you. I'm sorry. I was like, listen, don't worry about it. I'm sure I'll get fixed up. And then within, I think, 24 hours, Phil Parkinson had phoned me and offered me a chance to go to Bradford, which obviously it's a big team. And I think we was in League One, but we had 24,000 season ticket holders. So there was something that, I think I just jumped at it for. It's not too far away from home. I think it was an hour and a half top. So I was comfortable with doing the drive. I think towards the end of Bradford and yeah, from probably the middle of the season at Bradford, I was sort of, I didn't fall out of love with football, but I was a bit unsure because I think the old demon started to creep in, like when I'm doing well, something's going to go wrong. Yeah. And at this time I was 26, 27, and I was getting niggly injuries where it was nothing, but to me it was massive because it's like, you know, a stupid injury like 2 weeks out, I'll be thinking, oh, that's another 4 games I'm missing. So after a week I'm trying to run and I'm just making it worse, just because I was keen to get back playing. And I think my time at Bradford was frustrating because it was the second season of being in the playoffs. We got beat by Millwall, who then went on to go up. So I'd had 2 seasons where we were so close, but just fell away. And I came home. I spoke to Phil Parkinson, and it was sort of just, listen, let's go our own separate ways. And Keith Hill phoned me at Rochdale and was like, listen, what are you thinking? Do you want to come here? And I was, to be honest, it was probably the first time in my career I was like, I'm not sure. Like, nothing to do with the club, just me personally. I didn't know if football was still what it was, it still meant the same to me. And like I said to you before, I always said that I wouldn't just do it to get me wage. Like, I'm far from it. I want to be offering something. And he literally said to me, well, let's not talk about a contract. He said, come down and train. Just come down for a couple of days and see what you think. So said to him, right, okay, give me a couple of weeks, because we'd only just, obviously when the playoffs, the season goes on for another 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. So I said to him, just give us a couple of weeks rest, and then I'll ring you and come down. And I rang him. He said, come into training. So I literally went into training, mate, and I trained for 1 day. And before I could fucking leave the club, mate, he had me in his office signing a deal. I was like, how have you actually managed to do that? Yeah. Like, I said I'd come to train for a couple of weeks, and like day one, I'm signing a deal in your office. And he was just, listen, even Keith said, someone I still speak to at least once a week now. And he was a great fella. And I think I was there for 18 months. No, was it? I was there for 2 seasons, just not here for 2 seasons. But yeah, another club that
top manager, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a great fella. But even the club, mate, it was probably the first time that I've played for a team that has got a good fan base but doesn't excel, if you know what I mean. Like, yeah, it's only a small stadium, but it was that sort of reignited the flame. Like, I used to love going into training, and you train we'd get changed at the ground, because the training ground was literally around the corner. So you'd walk around, so you'd see people in the club all day. But you'd become personal, and you'd know people's names. And you know, times of walking into Sheffield United and Derby and places like that, where you know the face but you don't know the name, and it's like, oh, hiya, and they're like, hi, Stephen, but you're like, oh, I don't even know the name. And that's what started to wear on me. Like, these people, we all work for the same club, but we don't know each other. Like, you only know me because I play, and I only know you because you bring the cups of tea in at half time, or the kettle in. And it's like, but him or her still as important as me, because she's an employee. Like, we should all be treated the same.
Massively.
But for some reason, and it's no one's fault. You just, because the games are so high pressured, and there's so much by just losing 1 game, a manager can lose his job. Yeah. It's like, it's a cutthroat business. And when I went to Rochdale and you start to know people, it becomes personal. And you know, you hear of players, oh, we took a pay cut because they were going to get rid of the canteen staff. Well, if you don't really know the canteen staff, it's like, it's unfortunate, but it's not really going to affect me. But when you're seeing these people, when I'm seeing these people, and it's like, listen, if we don't win here, and Keith might be under pressure, if we don't win, like, there's an assistant manager, people that you do know, who could lose the jobs in it. It wasn't until I got to like 26, 27 where it became really personal, and I cared about everyone. Where I think at the start of your career, you just care about you, and I need to do this, and I need to be here. And then towards the end of my career, it just become, I think when I did definitely start enjoying it, it was because it became personal to me, and I did care about everybody at the club and not just picking my wage up and just playing for the sake of it.
No, definitely. Talking on your time at Rochdale, probably what most people might know you from when they see your face, last 10 seconds of the game at home against Spurs, that natural striker instinct, that natural ability. Talk me through that, just that 10 seconds of that game. And would you say that's what up there with some of your proudest moments, or just another game to you?
It was definitely up there with one of my proudest moments. It was bizarre, mate, because I'd been injured for like 4 or 5 weeks prior to the game. No, sorry, I'd been injured probably about 12 weeks prior to the game, and I'd been back for like 4 or 5 weeks, and Calvin Andrew, Ian Henderson were flying, like absolutely flying, and mate, I just could not even, I couldn't even get on the bench. Like they were doing really well, but I was like, listen, it happens. Like I'm sure people have done it when I've been flying, and they've sat there and bided the time. And I think on the Tuesday night we were playing Millwall away in the replay, the game before. So obviously everyone knew that whoever won had Spurs. So we played Millwall in I think it was either the Tuesday or the Wednesday night in a replay. It was away, and me and a couple of my mates went for a game of snooker where I live, and Juventus were playing Tottenham. So they're having a couple of pints. The lads having a few pints. I'm like, oh, go on, I'll just have a shandy. So I have a shandy, just watching the game. And then I go into training on the next day, and Calvin's in the treatment room. I'm like, Calv, what's up? He's like, I just felt I think it was his calf or his hamstring. I felt it a little bit. I was like, you're okay for the weekend? Like, not even thinking about myself. He's like, yeah, it should be fine. So I'm like, oh, fair play, mate. You deserve it. Like, you was unbelievable last night. I've seen the highlights. Fair play, you've earned your chance. And even up until the Saturday, he was still involved. He was going to do a fitness test before the day of the game in the morning. So I thought, I'm not even involved. So I just turned up to watch the game. I literally turned up to watch the game, and Keith was like, Calvin's failed his fitness test. Davo, you're on the bench. So I'm like, oh, all right, sound. Just me being me, because I am a laid back character. I was like, oh, sound. All right, boss, nice one. Like, just flippantly. And I think it was I can't even remember how it went. I think it was 1-1.
1-1, 2-1.
Yeah. So it was 1-1, and Keith turned around to me and was like, Dave, how are you going on? And mate, I kid you not, I haven't played football for 12 weeks, and I was thinking, oh, for fuck's sake, like, really? Like,
it's going to go one way now, isn't it?
Yeah, this can only go 1 or 2 ways, mate. I must have been on the pitch 30 seconds, and Harry Kane scores a pen. I'm like, oh, fucking hell, here we go.
You're chasing balls now.
Yeah, now they're going to start booting it all in the channels, everything I hated at 24. No, I've got to do it at 31. So this is just one of them things. The ball, I think I played the ball wide, and then just made the run into the box.
You set it up, played it wide, like you said. Went to go long, came short, looked to play it wide, and I remember watching it on TV. It just come across, and I can't
even for me, mate. It's like that, and that's the confidence I always had. Like, once it's coming in, I'm not interested in the shot, like, because I know I'm going to score or I'm make a save. The only thing once the ball was coming to me was like, it's got to be a good first touch. Like, I think, over my career, I've done coaching with kids, and I do a bit of striker coaching, and you see kids who was like trying to smash the ball in the top corner. I'm like, why are you trying to smash the ball in the top corner? Your first touch is the most important thing. Don't worry about the goal. Like, the goal's still going to be there. If you control the ball in front of you, the goal's still there. Yeah. Like, if you control it behind you, now you've got to turn and then shoot. Or if you take your eye off it, you're going to completely miss it. So it was something that I was always gifted with. My first touch was always, when I needed it, it was there. And when the ball was coming in, the only thought in my mind was, make sure this is a good first touch. And thankfully it was probably the best touch of my career. And it was just there. And as soon as I controlled it, I knew I'd scored. And it sounds big-headed, but I remember. Yeah, I remember Keith saying it after the game in an interview when he was on BBC. He said we knew for a fact once he controlled it, he was going to score. And listen, that was the belief I had in myself, and thankfully all the managers that I've worked for have also believed that I can score goals. So yeah, it was good.
Nice, mate. And then obviously you went from Rochdale, went up to the sunny Scotland, played for Hamilton. And obviously, did you kind of know when you signed, you were like, this probably is the last hurrah for you, or?
Yeah, well, I think when I originally left Derby to go to Bristol City, there was a chance for me to go to Celtic, and God knows why I didn't take it, because I don't think people realise how big it is until you go up there. No, it wasn't that I never said no. It was,
I'll think about
they phoned the club and said, would you be interested in selling him? The club came to me and said, are you going to sign a new deal? I said, I'm still deciding whether to sign a new deal. Like, I wasn't sure what I was going to do.
Yeah.
So I didn't say no, but I sort of just had a little pause and I think it probably took 2 or 3 days too long. And by that time, when I decided, yeah, I'll go for it, the option wasn't there. So there was nothing concrete there. It was a phone call. They said they were interested. Obviously, Neil Lennon was at Nottingham Forest when I was at Derby, so it was a rivalry, so we knew each other. Obviously, previously Chris Commons had just gone up there, and I played up front with Chris as long. Me, Chris and Rob also played up front together. So I knew Como was up there and he was flying. But I don't know, I've always been instinctive. If something crops up and I've felt straight away the urge to do it, I'll do it. If I'm like, at this time I'm still only 24 in Scottish football.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I thought wasn't very good. You'd have Rangers and Celtic and that's it. But 100%. I wanted time to think about it, and by the time I decided, it was too late. But then when I left Rochdale, I actually went to Blackpool to help them out a bit. And then I just got a phone call out of the blue off Martin Cannon, and because I didn't say no, but I didn't take the opportunity, I always wanted to go up and see what these games were like, see what they all go on about the old firm and the football and stuff. And I just thought, I don't want to play in League Two without being disrespectful. I've played in League One, going around the same grounds, it's the same teams in the same leagues for the last 15 years. Like, are you really going to be up for it? It's going to be, once I'm playing, I'm fine. But within this mindset, I'm already doubting that my body can still play because of the amount of injuries I've had. And this opportunity come up, and I thought, you know what, it's a different place. It's different football. I think the fact that my first game after the signing in January was at Celtic Park, I think that I was like, well, even if I just go there for 6 months, like, we've got Celtic away and Rangers away, so what I wanted to do or what I wanted to experience, I'll do it straight away. And if I don't like it, then I'll just come back after the 6 months. And I went up there, and listen, it was tough because they are only a small club and they're punching well above the weight, the way they somehow they manage to stay in the league every year. And the last game of the season, we needed to beat St Johnstone to stay up, and I obviously scored the goal to keep them up. And from there, straight after the game, the chairman phoned me and was like, will you come for another year? I was like, oh no, she's going to kill me. So we was on holiday. So I was like, oh, Sash, the chairman from Hamilton's just phoned me. And she was like, oh, was he just thanking you for keeping in the league? And I was like, no, he wants to know if we'll go back next year. And she was like, you are kidding me, you told me you was going for 6 months. But yeah, I ended up there for another 12 months. But it was another one of them things, mate. It become really personal. Like, I think everyone knows Hamilton play on a 4G pitch, so you don't need to train anywhere. You can just train on a pitch.
Yeah,
so you're in the ground all day, every day. You know the people who work there. I started doing a bit of coaching with their under-17s and stuff like that, mate. And towards the end, I never thought I'd enjoy coaching. I never thought it'd be something for me, because if I had a player like me, I'd probably want to strangle him. if I was a manager and I had a player like me, where you think, just give that little bit more, which I was always given. But I can remember numerous occasions watching games where I've played well, and then come home and watch it, and I think, what the fuck are you doing, you lazy bastard? Even though I haven't been lazy, it's just the way my style was come across that way, and I just never ever thought coaching was for me. And they give me because I was up there on my own, and you have a lot of downtime. They said, why don't you come in of an evening, like all the academy teams train here overnight, come in, watch the training. If you want to get involved, which I ended up doing. And now I think towards the end, when the season got cancelled up there, I thought, what is the point of me waiting another few years playing when I know I want to do some sort of coaching or something like that? Why not just make the transition? Now, obviously, the season was cut short because of COVID, and I think it was just made it easier for me.
Yeah.
I come home and I just become just normal. I enjoyed being at home and being with the kids and being with Sash and not having to rush back to Scotland, you know, coming in for 24 hours and then, I'm going back to Scotland now. And I think it just sort of all just sat perfectly and was probably the right time for me to call it a day.
No, mate, 100%. I've got some quick fire questions for you just to finish off here, mate. One or two words to talk on it and then on to the next one. Best player you've ever played with?
Barry Ferguson.
Best player you've ever played against?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
It's not a bad name job, is it?
Yeah, not bad. You said 2 words, mate.
Best team you've ever played against?
I'd say United was probably the best team I played against. Spurs, another top team. But they were one-off games. I know I can't do this quickly. They were one-off games, but teams that I came up against that were tough to play was like Southampton with Adam Lallana, players like that. Then Bournemouth, mate, they were an absolute nightmare.
Favourite goal you've ever scored?
I'd say the Spurs one, for what it meant for everyone at the club, and you know, the chance for me to go to Wembley and have my kids there to watch me play in a game was obviously another dream. So I'd probably say, I'd say that, but not for the goal, probably for like the game afterwards.
Favourite moment in football?
Probably my debut.
Yeah.
Yeah, my debut for Tranmere,
funniest player you've ever played with?
Oh, Jesus. Funniest player ever. Yeah, there's a few. Robbie Savage is hilarious, mate. Like, really funny. David Goodwillie, ridiculously funny. Yeah, I'd go with them too.
And what team do you wish you played for if you could go back again?
I'd have to say Liverpool, just because it's my team.
And last one, what's next for yourself, mate?
Next is
what are you working on at the moment? Anything?
Yeah, so I'm doing my coaching badges, which unfortunately got paused because obviously we can't go out and do any hours. So I was doing that. I'm also doing a bit of consultancy work for my agent. So not a football agent as such. So he's obviously the agent, but I do a lot of the chats with the players, and you know, if players are struggling and stuff.
Amazing.
Because I've been there and had those probably more dark days than most with my injuries. I think I owe the game and other players a bit of advice, not because I felt like I finished too early, but for me it was right.
Yeah,
I feel like I still have to do more for players. I know obviously becoming a coach is more for my career, but that's obviously paused until we can do stuff. So I think anything along the lines of, you know, I've still got loads of mates who are still playing, so speak to those sort of lads as much as I can and try and help them. And especially with me the agency work that I'm doing for me the company I'm working with, because we've got so many young players. Just trying to point them in the right direction, mate. I'm not saying I'm right, like
no, but you'll give your opinion on it.
Yeah, by no means am I right, but I'm giving them, or I believe I'm giving them the right advice to go on. Listen, we have players right from Liverpool to people playing for conference teams, and the advice I'm giving them is individual advice. Like, you don't have to play in the Premier League to have a good career. Like, players who play in League One, League Two, Conference, who full-time players still live good lives by just maximising what you've got. Don't look back and sort of regret anything. I've got regrets.
Yeah.
But I don't regret anything, if you know what I mean.
No,
There's times where I think I've made the wrong decision, but I don't regret any part of my career because I know I give everything, and the amount of injuries I had to keep coming back. I don't think every time I came back, I don't think I ever came back the same. I always came back a lesser version, but because I was so determined, I knew I would always come back. And I think, going back to the question before about retiring, I think it was more, I was happy to retire on my terms rather than someone saying to me, listen, you've lost it, like it's gone, stop chasing it. So I think that sort of sits alongside each other. And then other than that, my wife runs a wig business for people suffering from cancer and hair loss. Amazing. And stuff like that. So we've been busy with that over the last week. We've been raising money for a young girl from Essex called Libby, who's got a type of blood cancer, and I think the people who are looking after her have run out of money to buy the testing kits to send out. So thankfully I've got friends in high places, so I've managed to get a Mo Salah signed shirt and Kenny Dalglish signed shirt and stuff like that. And
amazing.
Fantastic. So we've been raising money for that over the last week or two. So I think I just tend to throw myself into things, like but things that I'm out my comfort with, like things that I'm not used to. I try and do. In the first lockdown, I built a log cabin in my back garden with a couple of my mates. I thought, what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
Just dig this hole, pour some concrete in it and see what happens. So
amazing.
Listen, to be honest, I'm really happy because I've retired and I was looking forward to just being a dad. And listen, it sounds stupid because my kids are 16 and 10, and I'm happy to just be a dad to, you know, my lad will say, oh, will you run me to my mate, will you pick me up at 9:30? And I'm like, yeah, sound, made up, like I'm a taxi driver, but it's things that I've never been able to do.
No, and definitely.
So in the short term, I think just keep trying to be me, mate. Just keep smiling. Obviously, it's tough times for everyone. Obviously, we've all had our down days, haven't we, in this last couple of months, but just trying to be positive and keep active and keep my mind busy.
Amazing, mate. That's everything done. That's my questions done. But guys, I hope you enjoyed it. This has been one of my favourite podcasts. I think you've had a great story, mate, and what you do now and what you've experienced is massive. So honestly, everyone make sure you like and subscribe. There'll be more coming. And cheers, bud.